Language is important. Contrary to popular belief, language does not simply mirror reality. It helps create our sense of reality by giving meaning to events. Words are the tools of a speaker's craft, and words have two kinds of meanings, denotative and connotative. The denotative meaning is precise, literal, and objective. It's the dictionary definition. When I say I'm going home after class, I mean I'm going to a building with 4 walls and a roof where I get my mail. Connotative meaning is more variable, figurative, and subjective. The connotative meaning of home is the place where I raise my cats, where I feel safe and secure, somewhere I'm always welcome. Choosing words skillfully for their denotative and connotative meaning is a crucial part of the speaker's art. Good public speakers work to ensure that they are using language accurately, clearly, vividly, and appropriately. First, public speakers need to use language accurately. Using language accurately is vital to the speaker as using numbers accurately is to an accountant. Speakers who have serious aspirations should develop a systematic plan for improving their vocabulary. Public speakers also need to use language clearly. Because listeners cannot turn to a dictionary or reread a speaker's words to discover their meaning, a speaker's meaning must be immediately comprehensible. One way to ensure a speaker's meaning is to be clear and use familiar words. Say you enrolled at Durham Tech, not that you matriculated. A second way to ensure that a speaker's meaning is clear is to use concrete words. Concrete words are references to tangible objects. Instead of home, I could say a 2-story, 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath townhouse. That gives you a better picture of where I live than the word home. Because home is an abstract word, a reference to a general concept, quality, or attribute, home is more of a feeling, where a townhouse is a tangible object. Public speakers also need to use language vividly. Effective speakers use imagery to express their ideas vividly, creating mental images of objects, actions, and ideas. One way to generate imagery is to use concrete words. A second way to generate imagery is through the use of a simile, comparison introduced with like or as. Here's an example of a simile. Personal data is flowing like a torrent in NSA servers. What image comes to mind after hearing this statement? And what are some other examples of similes? How about mad as hell, high as a kite, or Muhammad Ali's famous float like a butterfly and sting like a bee? A third way to generate imagery is through the use of metaphor, basically the same as a simile, without using like or as. Here's an example of a metaphor. America's cities are the windows through which the world looks at American society. What are some other examples of metaphors that you can think of? How about she's doing a tightrope walk with her grades this semester? That's one way to say the student is struggling academically. Other metaphors include the curtain of night fell upon us, the icing on the cake, and a roller coaster of emotions. Effective speakers use rhythm to enhance the vividness of their discourse. Language has a rhythm created by the choice and arrangements of words. There are 4 basic stylistic devices for enhancing the rhythm of a speech. The first device is parallelism, the similar arrangement of a pair or series of related words, phrases, or sentences. As in this example here from suffragist Elizabeth Cady Stanton, rich and poor, intelligent and ignorant, wise and foolish, virtuous and vicious, man and woman. It is ever the same. Each soul must depend wholly on itself. The second device is repetition, repeating the same word or set of words at the beginning or end of a successive clause or sentence. Like in this example, if not now, when? If not us, who? If not together, how? Perhaps the best known example of using repetition in public speaking is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech, which also incorporates many other instances of vivid language. A third device is alliteration, repeating the initial consonant sounds in close or adjoining words. Nothing great is accomplished without cooperation, compromise, and common cause. Isn't that a more powerful statement than if I had said working together, finding common ground, and making decisions for the betterment of everyone? The fourth device is antithesis, juxtaposing contrasting ideas, usually in a parallel structure. One example of these are the famous words from President John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Now that we know some ways to make the language in our speech a little fancier, we also need to make sure we are using that language appropriately. Public speakers need to use language that is appropriate to the occasion, audience, topic, and to the speaker. Public speakers are more effective when they use inclusive language. Audience today expect public speakers to use inclusive language that is respectful to the different groups that make up American society. Inclusive language avoids making assumptions about your audience. Just like not everyone is white, not everyone is Christian, not everyone is heterosexual, not everyone is cisgender, not everyone wants to be a parent, watches Game of Thrones, etc. There are 4 principles for using inclusive language that has become so widespread that no aspiring speaker can avoid them. The first principle is to avoid the generic he. The second principle is to avoid the use of man when referring to both men and women. Now, I will add to these 2 that you should use gender-inclusive terms rather than man and woman to include those outside the gender binary. The third principle is to avoid stereotyping jobs and social roles by gender. The fourth principle is to use names that groups use to identify themselves. Now let's take a look at some examples, identify the principle of inclusive language they aren't following, and see how we can fix them. So what's wrong with this statement? If a large comet struck the Earth, it could destroy all of mankind. Since approximately half of mankind is womankind, avoid the generic man and instead use human life or humankind. What's wrong here? The Paralympics show what handicapped people can accomplish in the athletic arena. Be sure to use self-identifiers, the language a group uses to refer to itself, by using the language people with disabilities rather than handicapped people. One thing to keep in mind is that with some communities, their language evolves, and what used to be acceptable is now considered a slur. If this happens to you, don't get upset that you didn't get the memo. Just correct your language and move on. Up next, we have being a small businessman in the current economic climate is not easy. This one stereotypes business owners as men, when we all know any gender can own a business. Instead, use the gender-inclusive term business people. This one is a twofer. Each time a surgeon walks into the operating room, he risks being sued for malpractice. Just like in the last slide, you are stereotyping doctors as all men and using the generic he to refer to both male and female surgeons. Using he or she is better. But using a non-gendered word like the doctor is even better, as it includes people who might identify as neither he nor she. You can also use the plural they by rewriting the sentence. Each time surgeons walk into the operating room, they risk being sued for malpractice.